California Adult Education Program, Technical Assistance Project.
Hello, Consortium Lead Academy participants. Previously, you learned about the history of adult education up to 2005. And so to better bridge the gap between then and what we're doing right now, we have Adriana Sanchez Aldana, Executive Director of CCAE. Adriana, can you provide a little more background about yourself?
Sure, James. I have been an adult educator for probably 36 years, and my career has basically been cut into thirds. For the first third, I was a classroom teacher. The second third, I was a program administrator, program manager. And then the last third, I was actually a principal of an adult school. And then we add on 6 years for CCAE. And so basically, I've been in adult education for about 43 years.
Very nice, very nice. Can you describe the major timeline events between 2005 and the origination of Consortia?
Well, probably between 2005 and 2008, we started falling into a national economic recession. And in turn, that had a huge effect on the California state budget. In my adult education program, our director in the year probably 2008, 2009, told the administrators and all of the principals to reduce their program budget by about 25%. Combined classes happened, and we had to reduce the number of part-time teachers that we had. We closed off campus classes that were not doing well. And once we settled into our leaner programs, we were again directed to reduce our programs another 20% in order to remain fiscally solvent and not depend on other funding from the school district. So I can't see how other adult education programs dealt with the economic recession, but I'm sure that they also had to reduce their programs, as this was something that affected the entire state of California as well as the nation. And because the effect of the recession was so great, the state was unable to support all of the programs in the budget. So probably around 2009 and onward, the governor started toying with some ideas as to how to maintain fiscal solvency, and some tiers of flexibility were created as a solution to the funding difficulties that the state was having at the time, particularly with education. So tiers of flexibility involved all of the educational categorical program funding in the state. And all of those programs were placed into one of the 3 tiers of flexibility, meaning that depending on which tier a program was in, determined if the funds could be flexed, that is used by the district to fund other needs, or could be kept in the program. Categorical programs were those considered to be supplemental programs targeting specific student populations. And at that time, adult education was a categorical program. And in 2012, the adult ed program was placed into tier 3 flexibility. So the tiers of flexibility, tier 1 meant that there was no funding reduction and there was no flexibility to their funding. So programs that fit into this tier were special education, child nutrition, and the kindergarten through 3rd grade class size reduction program. Tier 2 meant that there would be a funding reduction for the following years, but there would be no flexibility. Those programs could retain their funding. Programs that fell into this tier were foster youth programs, apprenticeship programs, and K-12 internet access special funding. Tier 3 funding level meant that there would be funding reductions, and that those funds, those educational funds, those categorical funds, would be flexed, meaning that 100% of the funding could be swept by the school district to support any program or any expense with no need to continue the funds to those tier 3 programs. Examples of those programs: ROP, educational technology, and all adult education programs. So we lost some adult education programs completely.
Well, this sounds like a very challenging time, but what would you say were the major challenges during this time period?
Well, adult educators previous to this period had always, as a field, been able to respond in a positive way to a recession. And what I mean by in a positive way is that when the state had an economic downturn and people lost their jobs, we always had the funding to support the needs of those people who were out of work. They became our students, they returned to school, they retrained for a new job, they finished their high school diploma, or they got their GED, or they just prepared themselves to be ready for when the economy improved. This time we couldn't do that. Our doors were being closed on us, and we were unable to help the people of California who needed us the most. That was the biggest frustration. We also had to tell our teachers that yes, their work and their subject matter was valuable, but we didn't have the money to fund them. Our students needed those programs, but we didn't have the money to fund them.
What were the successes then during this time period?
Well, probably our lobbying and advocacy and grassroots advocacy grew. Throughout the years, we've always had to be vigilant, James, regarding our adult education funding. But this time, we made a more concerted effort to maintain that vigilance. There were rumors from one day to the next as to what might occur with our funding. And so we needed to be very, very vigilant. There was a lot of grassroots advocacy that united, or sometimes didn't unite, with the professional organizations, but that didn't matter because we were all advocating. And we knew that we needed to maintain our visibility with our legislators. This advocacy basically saved adult education from disappearing completely. And now I would hope that we are more aware of the importance of the continued relationships that we currently have with our legislators, as well as with our partner organizations. We need to remain vigilant.
Okay. Well, if you were able to go back to 2005 and were appointed state superintendent of public instruction, what changes would you have made to adult education and why?
Well, the change I would have made isn't specifically to adult education, but the change that I think would be very important is that throughout the years, the Department of Education has been reorganized so many times. And each time the Office of Adult Education has been moved into a lower place on the hierarchy. That has been completely frustrating as we have seen our influence in the department decline with each reorganization. Our leaders are doing a great job, but they are lower on the hierarchy right now. I would not have allowed that to happen. As a superintendent of public instruction, I would have ensured that adult education needs and adult education programs have a much more prominent place in the CDE hierarchy.
Very good. Excellent. My last question is, are there any words of knowledge you would like to impart to our viewers today?
Well, as I mentioned before, history tends to repeat itself. So we really, really must maintain our vigilance. Adult education is the most economical, reliable springboard or safety net, whatever you want to call it, for adults. We really need to ensure that the opportunity remains. It's so important, but so overlooked. Adult educators are passionate about what they do, about what we do. The results of the work may not be immediately visible, but the impact on the community and the families is huge.
Okay, thank you so much, Adriana, for your time today. You imparted so much knowledge and information. If any viewers today would like to reach out to Adriana, you can find her email listed in your course material. Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
California Adult Education Program, Technical Assistance Project.